Introduction. Ever observe the way a woman's attitude changes as soon as she senses your absence isn't limited to it's about the space you make. Space stands for taking a step back. Whether on purpose or accidentally, a strong dynamic is initiated one. It helps her understand what she had with it was in your absence that you weren't normal, that she finds the special attributes you entered her life, and all of a sudden she keeps thinking about you all the time. Unlike what many people think, it's not mind games when a woman misses you, manipulation. The goal is to show your independence and worth in a sense which inevitably brings her back to you. Women have a keen sense of intuition and are wired to detect changes in focus, and when you pause, your emotional availability. Being too approachable, you interfere with the cozy zone to which she has become used. This disturbance leaves a hole, and in that gap, she starts to consider what makes her insane is what she had with you. It's not only that you're not there, you'll realize that you brought her something that she couldn't replace. Life. Perhaps it was your self-assurance or method of getting her to giggle, or the reality that you were the only one who actually noticed her for who she is. Regardless of the time, she begins to realize it's gone. Absence more than she ever realized. Its existence frequently triggers this change. When you withdraw your vitality and refocus your attention on yourself by putting your objectives, interests, and development, you unintentionally remind her of why she was first attracted to you. A lady longs for a man who understands his value and doesn't hesitate to go when his she departed, since her effort wasn't returned. I'm wondering if I made a mistake. Lost a genuinely important item. This isn't about acting phony or playing hard to get. The goal is to pretend to be someone you're not, being aware of the psychological dynamics that inspire admiration and desire when she understands that you are unique, and you're prepared to back off when essential. She can't resist craving your presence once more. Therefore, what precisely causes it? Let's go into this desire she has in her mind. Delve further into the moments that constitute a women miss you a lot. Music. Crazy one's absence increases allure. Absence makes things more attractive. When someone feels as though you're not there, sets off a natural psychological reply that causes them to consider your value. This phenomena stems from the way people have a tendency to value things more. When they aren't easily accessible, being constantly present can occasionally create a sense of comfort that does admiration during a time of separation, makes room for introspection and desire. Consider a man named Mark, for instance, who was seeing Lisa Mark, and they were constantly aware, constantly accessible, and always the first to start a conversation. Lisa relished his company, but eventually she began using his efforts for granted. Mark became aware of this and made the decision to retreat, not out of resentment, but rather to concentrate more on his fear of his profession and personal development. Without his ongoing messaging and accessibility, Lisa started to observe the void she discovered in herself. Looking at her phone more frequently and wondering why hadn't Mark texted her yet. A void was created by absence, and in that void, Lisa started to miss the small things in life. This is what Mark used to do for her. This idea is evident in friendships and even family ties. Consider the last time a relative or friend relocated or became less accessible because, considering your hectic schedule, the time you invested felt more significant when it was done jointly. Decreased in frequency. You may have discovered yourself thinking back on the past moments or looking forward to the next interaction. This affective response is a strong reminder that there are ways in which absence of increasing the importance we place on others. Consider an alternative situation in which Alex and Sophie and her partner had been together for a number of months, and Sophie felt secure with Alex would one day always be there. Alex ceased to be as accessible, concentrating instead on his interests. And initially, he spent time with his pals. Sophie was perplexed and maybe slightly annoyed, but as time went on, she started to consider how much she valued Alex's humor, encouragement and manner made her feel unique because she didn't have his continuous presence helped her see how he greatly enhanced her life, igniting a rekindled interest in this. Isn't regarding deceit or purposeful. Refusing to show affection is about realizing that occasionally stepping back lets people see who you really are. Value when you're too approachable might unintentionally begin to take you for yes, but when you establish a healthy distance, it allows them the opportunity to "I miss you," letting them know how much they value your presence too. The influence of emotion. The influence of emotional vapor gaps that occur when someone makes an emotional void because it compels the other one to face any emotions they may have had. Ignoring or disregarding the truth. People frequently don't appreciate what's always accessible as soon as you, whether on purpose or not, take a step back, cause a response that they begin to experience the void you depart from, and it evokes feelings they weren't aware were. This is where things start to get contentious. Emotional voids are effective because people are inherently self-centered. People frequently give more thought to how someone makes them feel differently about the individual themselves when you're constantly there. They don't feel compelled to consider what you contribute to the table is simply thought you would be there at all times, but when you open a gap and interfere with their comfort, they must now sit with the pain of being without you, and it makes them acknowledge what they have lost. Consider a man by the name of Tom who was in Jenna. Tom's brief relationship was constantly the one making plans and giving Jenna a sense of specialness. Jenna liked the attention, but never thought about whether she really thought Tom was worth more than Tom ceased messaging her after a day as much and began concentrating on himself, going to the gym and spending time with friends. While going about his life, Jenna sensed the emotional vacuum nearly instantly. It wasn't initially love or even remorse, was pain that she wasn't accustomed to being the focal point of his universe. Then, pain turned into interest. Jenna was the one after much longing. Attempting to contact Tom in order to fill the kicker is the gap he left. It is effective to create emotional holes because the ego is challenged when someone feels your absence goes beyond simply being absent. Their bruises are the reason for your presence. Pride, they begin to wonder, why are they not listening to me? Am I no longer good enough? Their ego-driven response frequently causes individuals to pursue the individual they might have ignored previously. Of course, strategy is not suitable for all people, and it can feel manipulated if it's done incorrectly. Reasons, but the reality is taking a step back. And making room isn't about having fun. Games, it's about taking back your worth. If someone is genuinely interested in you, your creation of an emotional vacuum will make them consider their emotions and set priorities in a manner that they hadn't previously. It's a brave action, yet for many, it's self-belief. As a pulling power operates with 3 levels of assurance as a magnet. Force, when you make a hole in your emotions. It makes a woman face her emotions. She might not have frequently acknowledged guys. Sense that they must be there all the time, present, focused, and able to maintain. She is intrigued, but this is the harsh reality. Women don't really appreciate what's constantly. When you take a step back and pause giving her energy, she'll begin to experience the consequences of your absence, and that's when her feelings start to surface. JN, let's use a relatable example of overdrive. Was smitten with his girlfriend. He texted Emily throughout the day to arrange dates, each weekend, and ensured that Emily, always felt first and foremost. Appeared content, but over time, when her excitement subsided, she began to reply, Later rescheduling and taking action, John felt disoriented and even more desperate to catch her eye someday. Weary and irritated, he made the decision to quit trying so hard and concentrate on his career, frequently went to the gym, and began returning to his friends' company. Emily didn't notice at first, but as the days passed and John's customary focus wasn't present, she started to feel uncomfortable. She began to question why he wasn't asking her out or sending her a lot of texts. His creation of an emotional vacuum made her recognize how accustomed she had become to his focus, and she has now overlooked it for. This is frequently a game changer for guys, but it's not concerning manipulation, it's about a woman's comprehension of human nature. The emotional reaction is strong, impacted by her sense of worth wanted, but when you're also accessible, she ceases to appreciate the work. You're contributing by making a space for disturb her sense of comfort and make her consider what you gave her. This is why it works in life. When a woman begins to experience that emotional emptiness, it questions her feeling of security. She begins to wonder why you're no longer focusing on her with the same enthusiasm and care. Did she take you for granted? Is she losing you? Admittedly, these ideas can spiral, and she will soon be the one contacting. To fill the void you made, this does not imply that you should disregard her or play games. Rather than concentrating on constructing your life away from her, follow your objectives. Hang around with your pals and turn into your greatest self when she observes your success without her. Continuous affirmation of the emotional gap will strike more forcefully. She'll understand what she had, and she will desire it. Value scarcity is increased by back 4 SK. Value is increased by scarcity enhances value, and this idea pertains to relationships in the same way that in sports it happens when what's constantly accessible, it gets more appealing, and people begin to recognize it's for men. This idea of actual worth can mean in contrast to a well-known athlete and their influence on the group. Think of a football, a squad led by a great quarterback, someone who regularly performs at the team and the supporters at the top of their game, and the league may even begin to take because he takes his brilliance for granted, is always present to deliver, but then suppose the quarterback is hurt or chooses to take a vacation, but all of a sudden without him, the squad struggles with the fans, acknowledge the impact he had on the game, and his absence causes everyone to more than they ever did appreciate him. While he was constantly on the apply this to relationships immediately, field. When you're always accessible to a woman who always responds to texts right away, constantly accepting plans and putting her first beyond everything else, she may become oblivious to you. Like the quarterback, you're always. She believes that your work is just portion of the game. However, as soon as you enter back, she starts to sense the lack of her presence, which compels her to reassess your importance in her life. Someone who was dating, like David, he was always the one who loved him. Arranging calls and making sure she felt unique, not because she didn't thank you. However, over time, his consistent availability began to feel normal. David made the decision to change his focus one day. Returning to his interests and passions, he began playing basketball in a local league, focusing on his side project, and invested more time spent with his pals. His focus grew less dependable, and at that point, she saw the empty space, which is similar to when after being benched, the top player returns. The energy fluctuates for weeks before abruptly everyone is reminded of how important they missed their presence. At David's girlfriend discovered that she was considering more curious as to why he wasn't there. And even going above and above to connect. Being scarce does not equate to being unavailable. Always entails demonstrating that your energy and time are worth as much as the famous sportsman whose absence causes the team and supporters to. Your scarcity enables you to value him more, A lady to see your value when she believes that you're not always accessible. She will cherish you much more than if you were consistently on the field. 5. The power of self-allure, self-prioritization's allure, putting one's own appeal first. Setting priorities is indisputable, particularly in relation to what women think about men who put oneself first, concentrating on his objectives, interests, and organic personal development demands attention and respect. Yet it's not simply having confidence. It's about demonstrating that your life is not about with anyone else. This confident independence has a magnetic quality because it sets women are different from you. Drawn to purpose-driven males outside of the partnership when you put yourself first, it conveys a message. You don't need her attention badly, and you don't require her approval to. This gives off a sense of strength, the intrigue that entices her to participate. The reality of your world is that women don't admire a man who puts everything on the line. They admire a man who is knowledgeable to them, his value, and doesn't hesitate to walk his own path. For instance, Mike had been going out with Jessica for some time, and she was accustomed to him going above and beyond too. He would postpone his plans to make her happy, spend time together, and constantly let her to determine their course of action and ensure that she needs came first. But Jessica eventually began to lose interest. She was unable to pinpoint it, but Mike's continuous accessibility and readiness to put her first above all other considerations. He appears less appealing one day. Mike made the decision to shift. He ceased abandoning things for Jessica and started concentrating on his work and going to the gym that he began to pursue. He had ignored hobbies like photography. While participating in his neighborhood soccer league, Jessica saw the change right away. She began to inquire further about demonstrating greater interest in his actions and even attempting to get her to align Mike's schedule with his. What changed? Prioritizing herself rekindled her. He showed her that he was attracted to her, was precious, and that he would not give up his objectives to keep her. Jessica was intrigued by this change and saw Mike was seen as more than just a boyfriend. He was a purposeful man, and ambition by concentrating on oneself become more than a mere contestant to attract attention. You turn into a man with a mission, someone she can admire, and admire how alluring it is to show her, because she is not necessary for you. And this, ironically, is what makes her desire you even more. Ladies are drawn to the energy of a self-driven man, confident and unrepentantly committed to turning, become the greatest iteration of. The truth is that a woman doesn't. In conclusion, she misses you for who you are and how she was moved by your constant there. As soon as you cease being her priority and provide an emotional safety net, she begins to notice the emptiness in herself. It's not about playing if you leave it behind. Games are about realizing your value and taking a step back to allow her to understand also. But the true query is this: about power and ego or love? Hey, please share your thoughts with me, your opinions in the space provided below, and let's begin the chat. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you at the next one.